I just kept writing. I couldn't stop once I started. It was like a little bug just caught me, and I just started writing. And I sent it off to my friend Lindsay Page, and she loved it. She's a published author herself. And she's like, hey, let's co-author a book. I was like, sure, let's do that too. And 16 days later, we had Breakaway. Seriously, is how fast it went.
That is really interesting because we've had a lot of writers on that talk a lot about the process and how the process can drag on for months and for months, and sometimes it's 6 months to a year before they get comfortable with the draft. So that's great that you were able to get one done in 30 days.
I was really shocked that I did it, because when I was done, I was like, okay, this is this really a book? Like, did I really do this? And then I was good.
Excellent. Very good. Well, let me ask you about your inspirations for writing. Where does your inspiration come from? Does it come from the books that you read? Does it come from having been an avid reader all your life? Or where do you draw some of the inspiration for your writing?
Melting Away the Ice came from a personal experience from myself. That's how that book kind of started off. I draw from inspirations from other authors, obviously. You know, you see all these amazing authors and you read them constantly. So I kind of draw from them too, but Melting Away came from a personal experience. So it was easy for me to flow through it quickly.
I want to ask you too about the sort of the backdrop for your series, the Penalty Kill trilogy, which we'll talk about here for the next few minutes. It being hockey, which is so interesting because this area especially is a big football area. It's a big baseball area, and really those are the two dominant sports. So why hockey and how hockey and why did you use hockey as sort of the backdrop for the trilogy?
I first went to a hockey game when I was 8 with my dad, and I was hooked. I couldn't look away from the ice. I was addicted. I have been a Chicago Blackhawks fan since that day. It was easy for me to write about because I know so much about it. It's the thrill of the game. I love watching hockey and the fast-pacedness of it and the intensity of it, and I just love the sheer adrenaline watching from it. So that's pretty much why I picked hockey for the Ice series and the Penalty Kill. So.
Let me ask you about the first book that you mentioned in the Penalty Kill trilogy, and that is Melting Away the Ice. And we follow in that story two characters primarily, Sarah and Lucas. And when I read that first book prior to our interview, I was really impressed with those two characters because I think together they're terrific. I think apart they're terrific. Tell us a little bit about Sarah and Lucas and what goes on in this book regarding their stories.
Sarah is kind of mimicked off me just a touch, not all of it. She is coming out of a really bad relationship, very traumatic for her, and she's trying to find her life and find herself and figure out where she's going to go from this point on, and can she go from this point on? Will she be able to get back to a normal life? Lucas is the captain of the Chicago Eagles, and his focus is the Stanley Cup and hockey, and that's it. And that's only his focus, and he doesn't sway from that point. That he has tunnel vision. He doesn't sway from the point of hockey. So for him to meet Sarah, and it's how he grows up and how she grows up and how they find each other.
One technique that I think really helps make Lucas and Sarah's relationship interesting is Lucas's family, and how they're so open and honest with Lucas about her, and they kind of welcome her into the family, and they love her simply because he loves her. Can you talk about the family and their role in the story and bringing really Lucas and Sarah together?
My favorite character to write was Ava, which was Lucas's cousin, who was practically his sister. She was so much fun to write because she's real blunt, and I love that about authors who can just stand out on their own. I wrote it particularly so we could see a different point where Sarah doesn't have a family and she doesn't have anyone else but herself. So I wanted to write something so she have a comforting spot, someone she could lean on.
You mentioned Sarah needing sort of a support system. I think that's one thing we learn about the book as we go through is that Sarah does have a traumatic past. And without giving too much away, can you tell us a little bit, other than the fact that she doesn't really have much of a family, her traumatic past and how that kind of attracts Lucas to her in some way?
It's the sadness. The sadness in her eyes is what attracted him to her, or her to him, or vice versa. He feels like he should protect her and he should help her and save her in some regard. So that's how that connection started. He just felt like he needed to save her in some way.
Let me ask you one more thing. We'll move on to some other books in your Penalty Kill trilogy. Is Lucas, and I think that one of the interesting things that you see oftentimes with books where sports is a backdrop is you always have the overly macho sort of very strong, temperamental character, the typical athlete or the typical jock that we see. But you do a good job of giving Lucas some of those skills as a character, but also making him be a little softer, especially with regards to Sarah. Did you find as you wrote his character that it was difficult to sort of rein him in as being the typical jock, or did you set out knowing that Lucas had to have a soft side in order for the story to work?
No, I set out knowing him he had to have a soft side. You watch hockey as avid as I do, and you get stuck in that there are all these mean guys with no teeth on the ice beating up each other. When really, if you look behind them, you see they're in charities and they care about people and they have families and children and wives, and you have to see their other side, the off the ice side. So that's why I wrote it both ways.
So that's the first series, or first book rather, in the series, Melting Away the Ice. We go on to other series and other books in the trilogy. Tell us a little bit about the second book that you have in your Penalty Kill trilogy.
Breaking the Ice, is the second book, and it just came out in the 1st of December. I've gotten really good reviews about it so far. It's actually Sarah's best friend, Rachel, and it's her story and how she's progressing. Since it picks up a little bit in between Melting Away and Breaking, it kind of picks up in the middle of Melting Away the Ice, so there's a little bit of an overlap. But you can see Rachel's point and how she helps Sarah, because that's the only lifeline she has.
So do we see a lot of those characters from Melting Away the Ice? You mentioned Sarah kind of crosses over into the second book. Do we see Lucas? Do we see the family? Do we see those other folks carrying on?
Yeah, my publisher really, really wanted more Lucas, so we do have Lucas and Sarah in there, and so we have them in there. They're in there, I promise. And there's going to be scenes with them, and everyone seemed to really like it. So
let me ask you about writing a series, because you're one of the first authors we've had on our show that has written a series featured around a cluster of characters that are the same. What would you say as a writer are some of the advantages to writing a series where the characters are sort of carried through, and what are some of the disadvantages you find to writing that kind of a story where you've got to keep some of those same characters involved?
The disadvantage sometimes is it's hard to write a series, I think, sometimes, because you've got the same characters over and over and over again. It's kind of like, okay, what else can I do? Where are you at now, 5 years later? Mm-hmm. But the positive side of writing a series is you have those characters again. You have them, and you fall in love with them over and over with each book, and there's a different scene, and you see a different aspect from a different person, and it's like, okay, I didn't see that before, and now I do. So you fall in love more with each book.
Okay, interesting. I'm glad you said that, because I know as a reader myself of series and someone who always looking for a different approach. Something different about that character in book 2 that maybe we didn't see in book 1,
right,
or book 3 that we didn't see in book 2. So that's really interesting that you're able to keep that fresh and unique.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your third book in the Penalty Kill trilogy, what that's about and what that's centered on, and do we see any of those other characters from the first 2 books carried over?
The third book will be coming out probably in April-ish timeline. I don't have a set time yet. It's going to be Charity's book, and that is Sarah's personal assistant, her legal assistant. Charity ended up having a book on her own just because she's just so fun to write, and I didn't intend for it to be that way, but it ended up being that way, and my publishers are very excited about seeing that, so we're excited. We can't wait to see it in April.
That's great, terrific. I'm going to ask you too about a couple other characters. Levi and Presley, where do they pop up in the story? Where do they pop up in the series? I found them to be kind of interesting too.
Levi and Presley are part of the series that I write with Lindsay Page. They are more of an NA book, more of the new adult genre. We picked them up they're just 2 crazy characters that we love. And they just seem to come to us in the Penalty Kill trilogy. So
I'm going to ask you too about writing college students,
mm-hmm.
Because I know sometimes that can be a challenge.
Yeah.
If you've been far removed from college for a while, you have to really put yourself and transfer yourself back to that time frame or that mindset. What was it like writing that in a college mindset, and was it difficult to make that transition to write sort of a young adult novel with those 2 characters at the center of the story?
It wasn't real difficult. My co-author, Lindsay Page, is a college student herself right now, so it was easy for us to because she's a little bit younger than I am, so it was easy for us to pick up. I have been in college, it seems like, all my life, so I seem to be easy. It's an easy change. But yeah, it was fun to write, and their third book is getting ready to come out probably around March, and we're going to end that series. That's going to be the last book. So we're excited and kind of sad about it too. So.
Sure, absolutely. That leads me to my next question. What are you working on looking ahead past this series? What are you thinking about writing? Is there any projects you've got percolating in the back of your mind that you're looking forward to bringing out?
I have a couple. We're trying to leave the sports romance, obviously, because you can only write so much hockey, as much as I could write it all the time. We're looking for my publisher is looking for more new adults. It seems to be the hot topic right now, and I've wrote it already. Different genres in that different topics in that area. We are working on a series right now, which was not intended to be a series, but it started out. It's going to be out this summer, and it's called the I'm Real series, and it's going to be 4 books, and it's going to hit on 4 large women topics such as like domestic violence, infertility, self-esteem, and rape. So.
And what do you find that series, or are you planning on setting that with characters who are in high school, college? Will they be sort of the characters we follow through those storylines?
They're going to be 4 standalones but connected books. They're each going to take on their own topic, but they could be considered standalones. But we're keeping them in a series so that everyone can see the main topics that happen in women. Not all women, but a lot of women, and someone they can relate to. And my publisher had asked me if I could write that up. So we're looking for the first book to be out this summer.
Fantastic. That's great. We'll certainly be looking forward to that. You mentioned co-authoring a book with Lindsay Page. You mentioned her name a couple of times. Talk to us about the experience of co-authoring a book, because I think a lot of our writers that we've had on chapters have gone ahead with projects on their own, totally on their own. Now, they've worked with an editor, worked with a publisher, worked with an agent in some cases, but never with another author. What was that like? Working with another author, and how did you and Lindsay get connected to start writing these books?
Lindsay came to me after she read my Melting Away the Ice. She came and she's like, I really would like to write a story with you. And I was like, what? Because I'm a huge fan of hers before. She writes Bold as Love series, and it's an amazing series. And she has a lot of other great books out. And I was like, you want to write with me? I was such a girl. I was like giddy and jumping up and down. But she came up with this idea for Levi and Presley, and I was like, I love it. And we just started writing. She's a huge Penguins fan. I'll let that slide sometimes because I'm a Blackhawks fan, but it's okay. But she's an amazing author. She's very young, and she's going to be a big name soon. I can just feel it. She's got a lot of talent in her. And writing with her has been an experience that I couldn't even put into words because she's that good. We take turns. We each write a particular character, and we write together. We always write together, and we're always on the phone. Okay, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And it's been a great experience, especially when you do it with someone you like, and it's a friend of yours.
So how much collaboration takes place? You mentioned, you write a character, she writes a character, then you sort of get together and compare notes. How long does that process go on before you actually get down to writing the first draft of the book?
We write as we go.
Okay.
I'm not the type of author who makes out an outline. I've never been that person. I end up writing character profiles, and Lindsay does the same thing, and we just start writing. We have a little bit of an idea of where we want it to end. The question is how we get there, so we just start writing. That's how I start.
Fantastic. That's
yeah,
great.
My first chapter when I wrote, I was like, okay, what are we going to do today? Oh, we're going to do this. And it just goes from there.
Great.
It never ends up. If I ever write an outline, it never ends up the way it's supposed to.
Never ends up. That's interesting. And that's something we've also enjoyed, too, on chapters, is talking to different authors about how they begin the process of writing a book, and is it an outline, or is it free writing, or is it collaborating with someone that they trust, or using a writer's group or some other type of method. So that's terrific that you and Lindsay have been able to have a good relationship and a good working relationship. Let me ask you about being an author and about writing. You mentioned that you and Lindsay work together. Where do you write best? Is there a certain time of day that you write best? Do you write just whenever the inspiration strikes? How do you write as an author?
I don't sleep very much at all, if any. I have a day job, and I take care of my mother who's handicapped, and I'm married, so I have a household to run also. And I write best when everyone's asleep. And I always have to have Friends in the background. Seriously, I love Friends, and it has to be in the background for me to do it. And I usually have music in my other ear, so I always have stuff going on. But yeah, it's usually real late at night when everyone's asleep and there's nobody around. So I'm kind of a night owl. So.
Well, night owl, great. Let me ask you about now that your books are out, and this is a common question we ask a lot of our authors here on chapters. the marketing of your book. How do you get your book out there? How do you get it noticed? Because, we see so many books being written on so many different topics, and trends come and go quite frequently. You mentioned young adult being sort of a trend right now, that a lot of publishers are looking for. And a year from now, maybe it's romance. A year from now, maybe it's something else. Once you got your books published, once you got the Penalty Kill trilogy started, now you're looking forward to this next series. How did you go about marketing your book? Did you target certain areas? Did you target certain readership groups? How did you and Lindsay go about getting those books out there, getting people to notice and pay attention to your series?
I was lucky enough that I already had a small fan base of friends who had read the book prior to me publishing it and being signed with a publisher. When we finally hit and clicked publish and got it going on Amazon, my friends helped me with that. I did a lot of blog tours. I gave away a lot of a lot of books and giveaways and things like that, so people could get the word out. Because that's what helped me, get started with other authors, and how I fell in love with other authors is, and I know free stuff sounds cheap, but sometimes it helps because you fall in love with an author that way. And that's what I did. I did a lot of media, a lot of social media, talking to people, talking to other bloggers, because there's essentially the heart of getting your books out, especially if you're an indie author or a small publisher. You need that blogger, you need that background or that fan base that they had. And I was lucky enough that I had that already, so a lot of friends helped.
That's great. That's great. I want to ask you, too, about any advice that you would give to someone maybe watching our show who's thinking about writing a book, has a great idea, is worried about, will I be able to find the time? Can I do it? In 30 days, will I make any progress? Whatever it may be. What advice would you give to a writer who maybe is thinking about getting into this for the first time?
I have my mother, who I love dearly, is kind of a hippie, and she always says, do you want to regret it later if you don't do it? So it's kind of the way I feel. You should try it. If you fail, hey, you tried. You failed. It happens. You just pick yourself up and do something else. But at least you tried.
Absolutely, I think that's terrific advice.
It's my mom.
Yeah, absolutely, and don't be afraid.
No.
And one of the things that is great about writing as an art,
right,
is that with computers now you can always edit and change.
That's right.
There's nothing that someone can write, or nothing that you could write, or I could write, or some other writer could write that can't be fixed or edited or changed or moved around later.
It's my favorite word, edit.
Yes, absolutely. So not to be afraid of that is good advice. Well, as we finish up our time with you today, I wanted to give you an opportunity to read a passage from one of your books, possibly the Penalty Kill trilogy, and just tell us a little bit about what you're going to read. Maybe set the scene for us. Where are we in the story? Who's involved? Maybe in the passage that you're going to read, and then we'll let you take a few minutes and share that with the audience.
Okay. I'm actually going to read from the first book of the Ice series, and that's Melting Away the Ice. And I'm so sorry, I don't have my book. I actually gave them all away not too long ago, so all I had was Kindle. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Felt so bad. But I never go anywhere without my Kindle, so I always have it on me. It's actually where where Rachel actually makes Sarah go to a hockey game.
Right.
It's my favorite thing. Okay, it's just going to be a few pages real quick. Okay, so it starts out in chapter 1, and it's Sarah's point of view. It says, "No," I said yet again. "Please," she begged. "No," I pushed my hand through my natural curly brown hair in frustration. "When was the last time you were out?" I stared at my best friend right in the eyes. "I went to the grocery store last night." My petite friend put her hands on her hips. "That's not what I meant." I slapped my hand to my forehead. "Rachel, I do not like hockey. Why do you want me to go with you?" Rachel looked at me once more and pointed her manicure finger at me. "Look, I got a great deal on these tickets, and you're going. I will pick you up at 6 p.m. No excuses." She turned and walked out of my office. I really didn't know why I even tried to argue with her. Rachel has been my best friend for as long as I can remember. Every good and bad memory I have, she's right there with me. And I know she's just doing this because I haven't been out in almost a year. Wow, has it been that long? Seems like yesterday that I remember waking up, only seeing the ceiling above me in the hospital. I can still feel every pin, needle, and stitch that was in my body, and I could hear my best friend crying in the corner waiting for me to wake up. The smell of disinfectant and sadness still haunts me. I closed my eyes so the tears wouldn't show themselves. I knew that I couldn't cry about it any more. Push it out of your mind. Don't think about it. However, with everything that happened, I did care for him. He was in my life every single day for 2 years, And even though a long time has passed, my thoughts still wandered back to him despite knowing that they shouldn't. No, let's focus on work. Being an attorney is what I'm good at, and being here is where I felt most complete. I turned my attention to the brief that I'm working on, and the brief that I'm drafting, and getting ready just to forget about going to the hockey game.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you, Mary, very much for sharing that with us. And let me ask you, too, as we finish up with you, if anyone is interested in getting Melting Away the Ice or anything in the Penalty Kill trilogy, how can they get a copy of your book?
All the books are exclusive to Amazon right now. So Penalty Kill, Breakaway, and Off the Ice are out. For the Ice series, it's Melting Away the Ice and Breaking the Ice. And the new one should be out March time. So March, April time.
Fantastic. Well, Mary Smith, author Mary Smith, thank you so much for joining us here on Chapters. We appreciate your time today and learning a little bit more about you as a writer and your books. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Eliot. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And if you're wondering, finally, where we are at here today for this episode of Chapters, we were pleased to be hosted by Empire Books and News at Pullman Square in downtown Huntington. We appreciate them joining us and hosting us and having us here today for this episode of Chapters. And we encourage you to stop by Empire Books and News. They have the largest selection of magazines in the tri-state. And if you've watched previous episodes of Chapters and you've been interested in any of the authors that we've had featured on our program, many of those authors have their books carried right here at Empire Books and News. So if you've seen one of our authors profiled, you'd be interested in getting a copy of their book, you can stop by here and talk with Charlotte and her staff, and they'll be happy to help you find those books. Many of those books are also signed as well. I know a lot of readers like to have signed books by the authors, and a lot of our authors that we've had here on Chapters have signed copies available at Empire Books and News. So we appreciate them having us here today on Chapters, and we appreciate them supporting us, and we certainly encourage you to stop by Empire Books and News at Pullman Square in Huntington for all your reading needs. Well, that's going to do it for us this time on Chapters. A reminder, if you have a question, comment, or suggestion about our program, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us an email at the address that you'll see right here at the bottom of your screen, lp4@zoominternet.net. That's the letter L, the letter P, number 4 at zoominternet.net. We appreciate all the comments and feedback that we get from you on our show. We appreciate it so much. So that's going to do it for us this time on Chapters. Please come again next time. And in the meantime, stay tuned to this station for news and views that impact you and your community.